Welcome to Athletes of the Reef podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of scientific research and make it accessible to everyone. I'm your host, Alex Morgan. In our last episode, we talked about the epaulet shark, a creature that essentially cheats the energy bill of life. Today, we are staying in the nursery, but we're moving to the reef flats and lagoons of Moorea, French Polynesia. We're looking at a different kind of survival stake. Imagine being born, just minutes old, swimming in a literal shark tank because, well, you are a shark, but everything bigger than you wants to eat you. You have no parents to protect you. And to top it off, you are born with an open wound on your belly. Today, we are diving into a brand new paper from 2025 that asks a brutal question. When a baby shark gets hurt, whether by a predator or a fishing hook, does it pay a price? Do they stop growing? Do they get weaker? Or are they invincible? I'm thrilled to be joined again by Dr. Jodie Rummer to unpack this. Jodie, welcome back.
It is wonderful to be back, Alex. The nursery areas of Moorea are not exactly the safe havens people imagine. It is a high-stakes environment. And honestly, the resilience of these neonatal sharks, the blacktip reef sharks and sicklefin lemon sharks, is nothing short of astounding.
I want to start with the specific paper we're looking at today. It's titled, "The Costs and Healing Rates of Minor Injuries in Neonatal Reef Sharks." Now, before we get into the injuries, you mentioned something in the pre-show that blew my mind. You said these sharks are born with a natural injury. Can you explain that?
Right. So unlike the epaulet sharks we discussed last time, which hatch from egg cases, blacktip reef sharks and sicklefin lemon sharks are viviparous. The mums give birth to live pups. And just like humans, they have an umbilical cord connecting them to their mother. When they are born, that connection is severed, leaving them with what is essentially an open wound on their underside. We call it the umbilical scar or the belly button.
Wait, so we're tracking shark belly buttons? That is the scientific metric here?
Indeed. It sounds funny, but it is a brilliant natural marker. This research was actually led by Shamil Dabar, who is a PhD student in my lab in Australia, as well as at the University of Antwerp in Belgium, along with our colleagues in French Polynesia. Shamil realized that because every single baby shark has this open wound at birth, we can use it as a standardized clock. We can measure how fast that specific wound closes to age the baby sharks in the first months of their life, as well as understand their healing capacity without having to inflict any new injuries on them.
That's incredibly clever. So you have this control wound, but the paper is about the costs of injuries. In my mind, body energy is like a household budget. You have a certain amount of income, calories from food, and you have expenses. Growing is expensive, swimming is expensive, and I assume healing is expensive. Like if my car breaks down, I have to pay the mechanic, so I can't afford to buy new furniture. Is that the logic here?
Precisely. That is the classic principle of allocation in biology. Energy is finite. We hypothesized that if a baby shark has an injury, say a bite from a larger predator or a hook wound from fishing interaction, it has to divert energy from the growth budget to the repair budget. So logically, we expected the injured sharks to grow slower or lose body condition compared to the uninjured ones.
Okay, so you have these baby sharks in Moorea. Some are pristine, just the belly button issue. Others have been through the ringer, maybe a bite mark or a fishing hook injury. What did you find? Did the injured sharks stop growing?
They did not. And this was the big surprise. We looked at over 100 blacktip reef sharks and about 80 sicklefin lemon sharks. About 10 to 13% of them had these minor external injuries. But when we recaptured them weeks later and measured their growth and body condition, there was zero difference. The injured sharks grew just as fast as the uninjured ones.
Zero difference? So going back to the budget analogy, that's like paying for the car repair and still buying the new furniture, but your salary didn't go up. How are they doing that? Are they just eating more?
That is one possibility, yes. They might be compensating by foraging more aggressively. But remember, foraging costs energy too. These babies have to chase prey. It's possible these animals are just incredibly efficient physiological machines. We call them athletes for a reason. Their capacity for tissue regeneration is just high. They prioritize both. In the wild, if you stop growing, you stay small. If you stay small, you get eaten. So they can't afford to stop growing, even when they are hurt.
It's like they have a biological credit card with no limit, but there has to be a limit, right? You mentioned minor injuries. We aren't talking about losing a fin here.
Exactly. We are talking about superficial cuts, serial tooth marks, which usually implies a failed predation attempt by a bigger fish, or hook wounds. If a shark lost a major limb or had deep internal damage, the cost would likely be much higher. But for these cutaneous skin level wounds, they seem to manage the cost without a penalty. It basically refutes our first hypothesis completely.
So they are resilient. But the paper also dives into something that feels very relevant to our changing world: temperature. You actually put these sharks in hot water. Well, warm water. What was the setup there?
We did. We brought neonatal blacktip reef sharks into the lab there where we work with our French collaborators. We had two groups. One group lived at 25 degrees Celsius, which is a nice, comfortable average for them. The other group was maintained at 29 degrees Celsius. Now, 29 degrees isn't super hot, but for a fish, a 4-degree difference is massive. It could be the difference between a cool spring day and a heat wave.
And you watched the belly buttons.
We watched the belly buttons, and the results were striking. The sharks in the 29-degree water healed significantly faster. The umbilical scar closed up much quicker than in the sharks at 25 degrees. We're talking about a significantly steeper decline in womb size over time.
Okay, so heat acts like a turbo button? Why? Is it just that their metabolism is running faster?
That is exactly it. Sharks are ectotherms. Their body temperature matches that of the water. When you heat up the water, you heat up the chemical reactions in their body. Everything moves faster. Immune response, cell regeneration, tissue repair. It is like turning up the idle on a car engine. It runs hotter and faster.
Well, that sounds like good news. I mean, with climate change, oceans are getting warmer. Does this mean sharks will just become super healing mutants that can recover from anything?
I wish it were that simple. You see, there is a catch. Yes, the turbo button speeds up healing, but a faster engine burns more fuel. In our lab, we fed these sharks. They had food. But in the wild, if the water is 29, 30, or 31 degrees, their metabolic rate skyrockets. They need to eat much, much more just to stay alive, let alone grow or heal. If they can't find that extra food, they starve faster. So while they might heal a wound quickly, they might simultaneously waste away from energy depletion.
It's the expensive life problem again. You can heal fast, but you have to pay the calorie tax. And if the reef is degraded and there's no food, you're in trouble.
Indeed. And we are already seeing temperatures in these lagoons hitting that 29-degree mark regularly. We call it the thermal optimum, but it is dangerously close to their thermal limit. If it gets too hot, proteins start to break down and the whole system crashes.
I want to touch on the species comparison. You looked at blacktips and lemon sharks. Did they heal the same way?
They did not. This was another fascinating find. The blacktip reef sharks healed their umbilical wounds significantly faster than the sicklefin lemon sharks. We're talking about a measurable difference in the daily closure rate.
Why? Is the lemon shark just lazier?
Not lazy, just different. Life history plays a huge role here. Blacktips are smaller, they grow faster, and they mature quicker. They live life in the fast lane. Sicklefin lemons grow much larger eventually, but as neonates, they might have a different physiological strategy. Also, the data from the lemon sharks came largely from St. Joseph Atoll in the Seychelles, and we might have missed the very early, rapid healing window because of when the field season started. But it highlights that you can't just say sharks heal fast. It depends on the shark.
So, bringing this back to the big picture, we have these athletes that can shrug off a hook wound or a bite without slowing down their growth. What does this tell us about conservation, about how we interact with them?
It gives us a bit of hope, actually. It suggests that catch and release fishing, if done correctly, minimizing handling time, cutting the line rather than ripping out a deep hook, might not be a death sentence for these neonates. They have the physiological machinery to recover. They are robust. But, and this is a big
Here comes the but.
but this resilience relies on them having energy reserves. If we combine fishing pressure with climate change, hotter water, less food, more metabolic demand, that free healing might start to cost them their lives. They can handle a cut, they can handle a hot day, but can they handle a cut on a hot day with no food while running, or should I say swimming away from a predator? That is the breaking point we are worried about.
It's the cumulative stress. One straw doesn't break the camel's back, but a stack of straws might.
Exactly. Healthy sharks equal healthy reefs. We need to make sure we aren't stacking too many straws on these little athletes' backs.
Dr. Jodie Rummer, thank you for taking us into the nursery today. It's amazing to think that a belly button could tell us so much about the future of our oceans. That was Dr. Jodie Rummer discussing the paper, The Costs and Healing Rates of Minor Injuries in Neonatal Reef Sharks, led by Shamil Debar and published in the Journal of Fish Biology in 2025. The key takeaway? Baby sharks are tougher than we thought. They can take a hit and keep growing, and warm water acts like a supercharger for their healing, at least up to a point. But as Jodie reminded us, even super healers need fuel. As our oceans change, these athletes of the reef are going to need every ounce of energy they can get. Thanks for listening to this episode of Athletes of the Reef. If you enjoyed this deep dive, share it with a friend who loves the ocean. Until next time, stay curious.